Is the new CNN headed in the right direction? Interesting. I don't think so, but our next guest might think so. So let's have an interesting conversation about it. Colby Hall, old friend, founding editor of Mediaite, joins us now. He wrote a piece about it. Now, Colby, normally I agree with you a lot. Not this one. So I think we're going to have an interesting conversation. So Chris Licht is the new head of CNN, and he got rid of Brian Stelter and Toobin and Harwood, and maybe many more to come. We don't know yet. So tell me why you think he might be headed in the right direction.
Well, I mean, I think the story that piqued your interest, which was really well written, was not necessarily about Licht in the right or wrong direction. It was specifically about Stelter's ouster, right? And it was really about how Chris Licht, it was the first thing that he had done under the new CNN that I thought revealed his strategy, and that was getting away from the navel-gazy kind of media analysis that Brian was really good at. I'm a friend of Brian's. I think Brian did a really good job. But I think what he was trying to do with that move is get away from this like news about news dialogue, which is a really interesting sort of philosophical dynamic. And I think that was an interesting play. I think when you talk about sort of media analysis, it's a tricky thing because Brian was occasionally a little bit of a smug sort of we know better than you, and it kind of undermined the trust that viewers had. And instead, I think the goal is for him to get more on policy and less on personality. Now, I think John Harwood is a great reporter, and his ouster is a sad loss. I'm not necessarily suggesting that what Licht is doing is a good or bad thing. I was basically reporting on it's a thing. So that's my take.
Yeah, I got you. So let's talk about Stelter. So, and I have an interesting history with Stelter too. I know him, and we've had agreements, we've had disagreements, right? And I think that he is smug, to be honest. Okay, and I'm honest about it, and that's not going to overly surprise him. But he's smug in both directions, right? So he is with the right wing, but he is also with the left wing, and that's like the thing that's never acknowledged in cable news, Colby. That it's not that they're left wing and they don't like the right. No, they're insiders. They don't like outsiders. So whether it's Trump or it's Bernie, it's MAGA or it's progressives, they're going to be smug either way. So, and I'm not at all convinced that if you get rid of Stelter, you get rid of the smugness. I think they're going to have the same exact smugness, but just lean further to the right.
It's a fair critique. I think that it's too soon to say. I think the point that I was trying to make is that, not to get too philosophical, but this sort of like obsession with navel gazing, like honestly, like to take a step back, the intersection, like media and politics work together so hand in glove. And I know that you and I agree with this, and I think what he's trying to do is to get back to news and less of like, let's stare at each other's navels. And it's a tricky thing because Fox News, I believe, is a pernicious outlet that needs to be held accountable. That said, CNN is in the business of covering the news. How do you cover your competitor when they're in the news? It was a point that I made in my column. It's like, if you're constantly talking about the crazy stuff that's going on in Fox News, you're ostensibly parading, or rather you're advertising like, oh, if there's crazy stuff on Fox News, I'm going to tune in to watch that. So, again, I think what Chris Licht is trying to do is to get away from the media talking about the media and talk more about the issues. Will he be able to do that? I think it's a really tough call. I think he wants to have Republicans on his airwaves, not necessarily to promote them, but to, discuss the issues and sort of perhaps confront why they may be wrong. I don't know if that's a tilting to the right, but it's rather sort of fostering a discussion about what's right or wrong. And by the way, when I say Republicans, I don't mean the Fox News MAGA Republicans, like the John Kennedy or Ted Cruz's who are on all the time. but there are reasonable Republicans that are willing to engage in a conversation, and I think that I think there are reasonable Republicans out there that can engage in conversation. And that conversation is probably, if it's possible, is good for the body politic. That's my point.
Yeah, I don't think so. So let's dive into that. I think there's almost no reasonable Republicans, and that when they find a couple that are not extreme, they're accidentally helping Republicans normalize their party, and it is not at all representative. So I could just show that to you in the polling. So, I mean, I'll give you two recent polls. I can give you 1,000 of them, but 61% of Republican voters say that they want Donald Trump to run, even if he's indicted. And
look,
so,
dude, we did a post on that in media. I'm not no lie detected. I agree with that. But isn't sunlight the best disinfectant? Isn't it best to sort of so we live in such a polarized media landscape that isn't it, do you want to just pretend that we can't have a dialogue, or do you want to call people out on their BS?
no, but they're not going to do that. Come on, I haven't seen them do that
that's
once.
the issue. So therein lies the issue. Is you're saying that will never happen. Maybe you're right. Probably you're right. But isn't it admirable to try? Isn't it?
No.
Come on, dude. You really think that these people aren't necessarily and I'm not talking about, again, the Josh Hawleys. There are bad, evil D-bags out there, and I'm not supporting them at all. But I think the idea is that from a business perspective, CNN needs to try to kind of curry a moderate Republican favor to the degree that it exists. And if it doesn't exist, well, at least they will have tried and failed, and then they can make that point. That's the sort of complicated idea that I was trying to get to.
I got you, Colby. Let me talk about the downside of that. First of all, there's different ways of doing it. So I've had David Duke on the show, and I called him an anti-Semite, a bigot, a racist, etc. You challenge people, no problem. Have him on all day long. I had Curtis Yarwin on the show the other day. He is a quote-unquote right-wing philosopher that J.D. Vance, Blake Masters, Bannon, Carlson are all quoting. He's for a monarchy. And I said, well, isn't that a dictatorship? And we had a real conversation about whether he's in favor of dictators, and it turns out he kind of is. You can watch that conversation. So if you do it that way, then great. I'm not one of these guys. Oh, don't platform them, right? But Chris Licht has taken over, and it's been a couple of months. I haven't seen them challenge one Republican, and it seems like they're not trying to have them on to challenge them. They're having them on to kiss their ass, and so then that's not at all interesting. And they're making it seem like, well, okay, I don't like the corporate Republicans anyway. I mean, I might dislike them more than I dislike Trump, but okay, let's say the corporate Republican at least doesn't want to destroy democracy. Good. Score one for the corporate Republican, okay? But if you have them on and put them in the most positive light and say this is what the Republican Party is, when you know that literally 2/3, 66% say no, we think Trump won the election, Biden lost it, Biden stole the election, he's been lying about it ever since, he did it with the ghost of Hugo Chavez, then you're giving a misleading impression to your audience that the guy you have on represents the Republican Party, when in reality, 2/3 of the Republican Party is absolutely insane.
Turk, I hear you. I think your argument is well-founded. I would push back and say that there is a distinction between 61% of Republicans polled and the sort of Republican thought leaders that are in office, right? So, and I think this gets to another point, and that is to say, I think there's clearly a hypocrisy within elected, what you would call corporate Republicans. You think they're full of crap, and I can't, again, no cap. I can't disagree with you. And I think what you've seen a ton of reporting is privately, these people are like, I don't know what's going on. It's just politics. We're just going with the flow, which is awful, which is craven. So I agree with you in theory. That said, why give these dudes a pass? If they are saying privately that they think Trump is evil and bad for democracy and is, literally a threat, a legitimate threat to democracy, then why not challenge those private thoughts that they share on TV and then put them there? It's why many of them won't even go on air because they are being held accountable. And so I think there's something laudable about that. Is it foolish? Is it tilting at windmills? Yeah, probably. Are they platforming them? But I think the point of my column, just to wrap up, is to getting away from the personality and getting more to the policy and the issues. And there are not every Republican that's in Senate or Congress is Ted Cruz and John Kennedy. And those people, those are the guys that need to be held to account, and their feet need to be held. And I think that's what he's trying to do to explore the truth. Will it fail? Maybe. I don't know. But
no.
The Meyer column was like, maybe it's an admirable goal.
Yeah, no, it'll definitely fail, but not because he's trying to do something admirable. So, Colby, in the time that we have, real quick, look, let's just go down a list here and see if let's get us on the record in a fun way on whether CNN will do this. So, for example, you know that there's two wings of each party, right? There's the establishment Democrats and the progressives, the establishment Republicans and MAGA, right? I've never seen CNN even acknowledge that. And I've never, ever, ever, ever seen them call out establishment Republicans or Democrats. So do you think under Chris Licht that they're going to do that? Because that would be shocking, and I would be definitely in favor of that.
I disagree. I think this new tone that we've heard from Biden has forced that issue. I think we've seen that when this new sort of, Dark Brandon version that's calling out MAGA Republicans, CNN has basically had to cover that and say, like, yes, they're the two. And honestly, it's painted Fox into a corner to try to figure out whether or not are they MAGA Republicans or are they establishment Republicans. And it's put Biden, a moderate Republican, his opponents on their back heels. I think so far that's been somewhat effective. So, not to the degree that you would probably be happy with.
No. Within the Republican circles, yes. Within Democratic circles, almost never. And they don't call the establishment or corporate politicians on either side those terms. They call them moderate, centrist, as if they're lovely, as if they're the ones that are clearly correct. That is not remotely objective.
So on this issue, we can entirely agree that there is an institution of both Democrats. It's something that you and I have talked about a lot, and we both are on the same page. There's institutional party members on both Republicans and Democrats who benefit from the current system and graft. And yes, CNN is part of that institution because they are a big institution. Is that good for America? TBD. I would say no. So to your point, I will cede you that point. But I would say that the difference between corporate Democrats and corporate Republicans isn't that significant. They're cut from the same cloth.
100%. And look, I'll predict here, they're not going to talk about policy. So next time there's a primary and we say Joe Biden tried to cut Social Security 6 times earlier in his career, CNN's going to say, shh, don't talk about that. They did it last time. They'll do it this time. They'll always support the corporate politician, whether it's a Republican or Democrat. But I want to ask you one last thing. So that's me. That's what I think. But progressives, there are almost none on CNN. I don't mean as anchors. I mean at all. Pundits, commentators, guests. So there's all this big hubbub of, CNN is going to be so objective now. We're going to cover politics fairly. That's why we'll have a lot more right-wingers on. Well, how about at minimum a quarter of the country that voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020 that never gets represented on CNN? Has anyone even asked Chris Licht, are you going to have progressives on? Or is it just assumed, no, we hate you guys. We're a corporate institution, and all we're going to do is...
It's a great point. I don't want to be a Chris Licht, sort of apologist, because I know the guy. He's a nice dude. I think he's in over his head in a good way. I think anyone would be in that position. I think he's trying to take CNN from the personality-driven Zucker world. I think what I wrote in my article was that he's defining CNN so far as by what it's not. So he's like pruning the hedges. Is there a fair critique that he's not showing? Like, it's not just progressives that it's not on the air. Like I'm from Kansas. There's a lack of coverage of what's going on in real middle America in a way that really has allowed Trump to, sort of like power of like sort of working class, poor people that would really benefit from a socialist movement, right? So yes, Licht has in fact so far ignored that. It's early; he's 4 or 5 months in. If you're arguing that there need to be more progressive voices on CNN, absolutely. I think we can judge him in the next 5 months on how that develops. Will he? Probably not, because he's you're right to be skeptical, but he hasn't really, we haven't seen the new version yet of CNN. Will it be more progressive? No. Should it have progressive voices? Absolutely. I think it should, because that's, to your point, part of the dialogue. That's part of the conversation. And hopefully on that we can agree.
Yeah, other than when Ted Turner was running it, CNN has always been and always will be the corporate news network. That's what it stands for.
They sell soap. Their job is not to report the news. Their job is to earn profits. And it's a real problem of where, does journalism, can journalism exist as a business model in today's, I would argue no, and it isn't journalism. CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, they all entertainment packaged as news, and therein lies the much deeper problem, right? So we think we're getting the news, it's all propaganda, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. That is a much larger problem, and that's for a larger conversation on another day. Everybody check out Colby Hall on Mediaite. He does really thought-provoking, interesting articles there. Colby, thank you for joining us. We really,
thanks, bro. It's I'm delighted to be here, and it's good to see your face again. And next time in New York, let's have a libation.
Sounds good to me. I'm in favor of that. We agree.
All right, good stuff, man. All right.
All right. Take care.